Hi race fans, I'm Elliot Camies and this is your NASCAR Cup Dates Friday preview show. The show where me and my co-host Dan go over our race picks for the upcoming race. But first, we'll go over what happened at Nashville Superspeedway. To do that, I do need to introduce my co-host. Dan, how are you? How have you been? And what do you think of the race at Nashville?
Thanks a ton for having me, Elliot. Always a pleasure to be here with you. This weekend we raced over at Nashville, and there was a lot of on-track action to see this time around. I'm a very big fan of this track. Happy to see it here in the Cup season again. Hoping it's going to be a mainstay. This odd hodgepodge between a mile track and a mile and a half, somewhere in this odd area right in between, produces a lot of great racing. I'm not so sold on the start time, though. They got to do something about that. The whole noon movement that we see a lot online has gained a lot of traction after this race. Eastern Standard Time finished right up around midnight, and that ain't no way to have a NASCAR race. But the real talk of the town, short of Chase Elliott's win, was Michael McDowell running up front. Man, that was excellent to see.
Okay, so one story that I did want to get your thoughts on was before the race actually happened. It was during the weekend. Bubba Wallace led practice in his number 23 Toyota Camry. Had a dismal qualifying, but had incredible consistency and race pace up until that final caution. He very well could have got back into the top 10. What do you think of that, about the speed and consistency of that number 23 team, given all the penalties that they actually had?
There's a lot of people who've made a lot of hot takes on Bubba Wallace, and I'm probably going to be making one right here. I actually like the guy. I followed him through the Truck Series, and he was one of the guys I was really pulling for. I ended up being at his race at Eldora, the second dirt track race they had there, watching him go door to door with Larson. Man, that solidified a potential fan coming out of turn. But finally, he gets up to the Cup Series, takes over Eric Almirola's car, and knocks it out of the park in a temporary schedule there. Full-time ride with the Petty 43, subpar performance. Okay, fine. Gets his own team, basically running JGR-style equipment, and one win so far in the nearly 2 years he's had with this team at Talladega in a rain-shortened event. Well, this year he gets teammate Kurt Busch. NASCAR champion, bona fide winner. He may not always be up front every single race, but he always at least seems to average one win a year, one way or another, man. So this is his year. And Kurt starts knocking it out of the park in this equipment, and Bubba is just running subpar. Some people can say it's out of his control. He is just a victim of circumstances. But we've heard this song and dance since the 2018 season when he started getting his full-time rides. Can't keep making excuses for him anymore. We're seeing what Kurt Busch can do in the exact same equipment. He is a legitimate threat week in and week out. And Bubba Wallace, it seems, when he finally gets on track with the rest of the big boys and he starts coming up front, might just be choking a little bit. Pressure might be getting to him. I want this man to do well. Make no mistake, I want Bubba to do well. Him winning and performing well is a good thing for the sport. But where it stands right now, he's got the speed. He just chokes under pressure. Now, I want to pose the same question on to you, Elliot. How do you feel about Bubba Wallace?
Yeah, I think the 23 race speed is there. It has been all season. The problem is the pit crew and the loose wheel situation they've been constantly having. And you say that drivers create their own luck. Well, this season, he has been a victim of other people's problems. And it's just not really helping. I mean, you remember Kansas, that team had an issue, but definitely had the speed to come back and finish in the top 10. I mean, Bubba is a good driver. You have to be good to race in that level. But you can't hide from the fact his team have too many issues. You know, I mean, like maybe 11, 12 loose wheel issues, and we're in race, I think, 17 now. You know, that's 5 races in total where that team hasn't had a problem. So I think that team really needs to turn around. They need to get themselves together. They need to go back, collect themselves. And they really need to learn to deal with that pressure well. Okay, so we move into the race. Obviously, the Toyotas were fast. So many of them in the top 10. Denny on pole. Truex came back later on to actually really challenge Hamlin. So what do you think of the speed of the Toyotas going into the second half of the regular season? And most notably the 11 heading into that playoff stretch. I mean, he's not going to have these bonus points going into the playoffs. But he's shown when that team can just have a bit of luck, stay out of other people's mess, they're fast, they're really fast. I mean, he's had, I think, one top 10 finish outside of his 2 wins before Nashville. So what do you think of that speed of that 11 and the Toyotas that didn't really have that in the first 10 races?
Yeah, this was a great race for the Gibbs team this past weekend. There's a serious point where I thought that they had a chance to get the 1, 2, 3, 4 like we saw Hendrick do over at Dover. But we all know the outcome of this race, but that doesn't change the fact that Gibbs is fast. They found it. It took them till about the mid-season point to find it, but they're here and ready to go. You got Denny Hamlin, who is a bona fide leader in this team. He is sure, he's failed a lot at actually winning the championship every time he's been there, but he does make it in. You got Kyle Busch, who's a threat to actually win, and the drivers around him. You got Martin Truex Jr., bona fide veteran, who got a championship to his name. And granted, sure, he signed 1 more year with Gibbs, probably be a field filler till Ty Gibbs is ready to rock and roll. And that only leaves Christopher Bell, who needs to get out of his own way, but is finally finding his own legs to run on. I think Gibbs is going to be a threat. I think they actually also have a chance to make it to the final 8. I don't even want to say final 4, but they're looking good. If Christopher Bell can get out of his own way, they have a chance. Same question on to you, buddy. How do you feel about Gibbs and the way they've been performing? And what's your prediction on Denny Hamlin going into this offseason?
Yeah, I'm really liking the speed of that car. I'm liking that. Oh, look, the first few races before Richmond, he weren't really to grips with it. You know, Daytona, you argue it's his own race, but didn't really see much of Denny before Richmond. So to see that team finally get itself together, to finally put the pieces back where they belong, to pick up where they left off in 2021, really good to see for that, and a team that deserves it as well. You know, Joki's racing, all those wins, all those championships. You know, Denny, almost 50 wins now, looking to tie Tony Stewart. I just think it's a testament to what that team can do, to what the driver can do. And he did have his issues. Well, I say he had his issues. He got caught up in a lot of other people's problems, which, like I said with Bubba, you kind of create your own luck, but he has been caught up in other people's misfortune. So, you know, for that team heading into the playoffs, it's going to be tough without that, you know, playoff point bonus. But he has accumulated a few. I think he's tied for the most with 13, if not 12. So it just goes to show that, look, these playoff point bonuses, they're going to be huge. But he's not going to be the worst out of the playoff field at the moment. Now, there is a likelihood we have 9 races to go, and a lot could happen. You know, we could see 4 winners in 9 races. We saw that earlier on in the season. So I'm not ruling it out, but as time winds down, it's looking more unlikely. Okay, so we move on to Hendrick Motorsports, where a lot of drivers did have their issues in Nashville. But Hendrick Motorsports, through not necessarily any fault of their own, lost half of their roster. William Byron, with a mechanical issue, had to go behind the wall, was out of the race. And Alex Bowman got turned by Corey LaJoie. Does that go to show to you how difficult Nashville is of a racetrack? It looks from the grandstands, from TV, like any regular intermediate, but there's definitely something to be said about the skill level that track takes and needs that respect that it demands.
Great point about Hendrick Motorsports. Yeah, they were definitely a victim of circumstance here. This track isn't a Dover, but yeah, you can definitely be the victim of a lot of other people's misfortunes over at this track. It creates a level of speed comparable to a Charlotte or an Atlanta, but it also has a tight enough format to also be somewhere closer to a Bristol in how it's ran and the spacing of the cars. Nobody really gets too spread out here. You're able to maintain enough speed to have a action-packed race and enough of a tight pack to see a lot of really close racing, and I love that here. The skill set you need to actually win here is just immeasurable. Chase Elliott managed to do it on skill, no matter what anybody else may think, and a few of his Hendrick boy teammates didn't have the same luck. What's your opinion on this? How do you feel about the Hendrick showing out here, and what's your take on Nashville going forward?
Yeah, I mean, Nashville looks like an intermediate, drives like a short track. You know, those turns are very tight. Yeah, I can't really tell you, obviously, what the drivers would be feeling in that car, you know, what it'd be like to be on track at Nashville. But looking at it, it looks very slick, very tight corners. You know, it's very much a driver's track, even though it just looks like a track for mechanical grip. Which has been kind of, well, no, it has been moved out with the new car. So, I believe Nashville has just become more difficult. I mean, last year you saw a lot of driver error. So, with this new car pretty much putting all the drive on the drivers, all that forward that handling on the drivers, it's kind of made that a lot more. They did very well to not spin out as much as they did. The new car did add another lane of rate. You had the low line, and then you had higher lines. They didn't really get into. I mean, last one was ahead of the whole race last year, but again, you did get to see this other line. I thought that was incredible for the racing there. I mean, I thought the racing last day was excellent, and the amount of drivers that spun out. When was the last time you saw that many drivers spin out on their own accord? Like, with no help, no one turns them, it's just them. So I do think that Nashville, I mean, it deserves its place in the season. 100%. I really enjoy it. I think the last 2 times we've been there, it's put on amazing products. But one thing that did slow it down was the amount of rain showers that we had there. It did change the running order a little bit. But what do you think of the improved speed from Hendrick Motorsports? I did mention Kyle Larson a little bit earlier. You saw him start to pick up speed compared to during the day. Chase Elliott really put himself forward and led a lot of laps. So, I mean, that improved speed between Hendrick Motorsports.
Yeah, though the racing on track is exactly what we want to see as NASCAR fans, the circumstances around this is the exact opposite. Starting the race off at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time is one of the worst ideas that they could ever come up with. You got to start it off at around 12 or 1, as I already mentioned, wherever you're actually hosting this event at. So the noon movement, back at it again. But if it wasn't for all the start again, stop again, start again, stop again that happened with the rain and the lightning consistently, this overall race, in my opinion, could have been a real chance for race of the year. I loved it. I think it was fantastic. And yeah, as you said, the improvised speed that Hendrick found when they lost 2 of their drivers in Chase Elliott, it really goes to show what kind of driver he actually is behind the wheel. He's not my favorite guy out in the track, but I can't argue with his skill. He is a champion. He's a champion like Kyle Larson this past season. He's a champion like Kurt Busch or Matt Kenseth. Sure, the rules aren't the same as they were back in the 90s and the 2000s, but at the end of the day, there's about 40 guys out there all going for a championship. One guy's got to do it, and it ended up being Chase just a couple of seasons ago. I'm honestly liking what I'm seeing from him. I'm liking what Hendrick did. So back on to you, Elliot. How do you feel about all the start again, stop again we had? What's your take on this whole ordeal about, well, starting the race at 5 o'clock versus noon? How do you feel about that, sir?
Yeah, I think it just goes to show how well they adapt to these situations. I mean, last year, they started a lot earlier, so the track was going to be hotter. So maybe they expected that. Maybe they looked at the later wait times, sure the track would be cooler, tried to adjust for that. But I just think Hendrick Motorsports, things have gone their way in Nashville. They've been there, you know. Now they're still undefeated at Nashville. We have to go next year to see if they can be beaten. I think a lot of that did come down to the final pit stop. But it does mean these drivers have to put themselves in position for things like that to happen. I think guys that pitted, you know, the Hamlins, the Truex, thought they'd bring more with them. Eventually, it turned out to be, I think, 10 guys stayed out. The rest were in the pits. But that speed that Hendrick Motorsports showed, you know, they were there before that pit stop happened. They were there in the late evening, you know, stage 2 and stage 3. I'd say stage 2 is pretty much JGR. But stage 3, they were there. They were there in the night. As the lights went on, they showed up. And it just goes to show the speed and the consistency of that 9 team of Chase, that he has the potential. Of Larson as well, he has been, you know, out there. He's been up there, but not the last one we saw last year. But I do think that's a one-off. That's not something you're going to see, you know, maybe once every 10 years, you know. Something crazy like that. But how about Chase Elliott? Before 2022, he hadn't won on an oval since he won the title in 2020. Last year was purely his road courses, especially the ones that hadn't been to.
Due to inclement weather, the race has been called with 14.
What do you think of his chances
out his rhythm
heading into
at
Road
this
America?
racetrack.
Being that now we've been there, he might have some competition. You know, Trackhouse has had speed on road courses, but they swept them this season so far. So what do you think about his chances going into Road America?
And the more and more I watch Chase Elliott, the more of an enigma he really is to the sport. He is both one of the most popular drivers in the entire community, and as well as one of the most despised drivers in the entire community, albeit because some people may not like his attitude. He can be a little bit quiet, awkward. He doesn't do well in front of a camera sometimes. But you can't deny his results. Sure, he only has 2 wins this year. Yeah, to your credit, yeah, he really hasn't won on an oval track since his championship win back in 2020. But consistently, he's up front. He's been leading the points for a long time, and you can't do that just from finishing mid-pack. That kid has a chance to win week in and week out. I know I say that line all the time, but he's always there. He's always in contention. And at a track that suits his racing style best, I find it difficult to bet against him.
Yeah, I still think he's going to be fast. I still think he's going to be up there contending. You know, the Ross Chastains, the Daniel Suarez's, the Carl Larsons. You know, we call Chase Elliott the road course king, but I do think that was purely based on the fact that Alan Gustafson was doing something with that car that made it extremely faster on road courses. He only went on a tear at Watkins Glen and the Charlotte Roval, which, in all fairness, at the time, were 2 of the 3 road courses on the schedule. Then he won at Coda, then he won at Road America. Then I thought, okay, look, he's got something on the road courses. But then you see Carl Larson go to Sonoma, go to Watkins Glen, go to Charlotte Roval. He's now almost caught up to Chase Elliott. Well, he's halfway there, near enough. The catch Chase Elliott as the road course king for the title. You know, he's not really shown the laps led in any other road course. But again, I do believe that is down to Carl Larson, and that is down to the speed he had last year. I still think he's going to be fast. I still think he's going to be a contender. But now you have to factor in Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez. Trackhouse have swept the road courses this season, and they're places that we have been to. Road America, we've been to. We're going to be going down to the Indianapolis Roval. We've been to. Charlotte Roval, we've been to Watkins Glen, a staple on the schedule. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to be an easy win for him. But he will be up there, definitely. Okay, well, it is that time when me and Dan make our picks. Dan, last week, you won with Chase Elliott. It's funny that the 2 times that you picked him, you have won. And he has won the race as well. So, with that said, does Chase Elliott take your pick this week as what I would call an easy win? Or do you factor in someone like Trackhouse Racing, who have swept the road courses this year with both Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez? Both getting their first win, so how does that factor into your decision? You obviously get first pick, so have at it.
Oh yeah, how can anybody even just doubt what Trackhouse Racing has done this year? Be it on your traditional cookie cutter tracks, your ovals, your short tracks, and especially at your road courses, which we're going to this weekend. They have been winning on loop almost automatically when they go to road courses. Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez have done it both at a road course this year. And yeah, you gotta basically keep that into account. But who's my pick? Sonoma, I picked road course ringer AJ Allmendinger. Didn't work out so well. I'm going to go with the guy who's got more track time, who I picked last week, Mr. Chase Elliott. I think he's about to do it again. Just get 2 in a row here. This man has won here before. This man has won over Watkins Glen. They make marketing material around this man for road courses. That should speak volumes as to the skill level he brings here. He's fast, he's quick, he's got a win on his shoulders coming off of last week, second of the season. I think it's about to be 3. Chase Elliott is my honest-to-God pick going into this weekend. I think he's about to do it. But now back on to you. How do you feel about the Trackhouse domination we're seeing over at all these road courses? Does it affect your planning any? Who do you think it's going to be this weekend?
Well, I feel like people give advice nowadays and don't actually take it. Well, I'm going to change that. Today, I'm going to take my own advice. I'm going to go down the Trackhouse route. I know the Ross Chastain Don't Give a Damn tour has hit and it's staying, but you can't deny the speed the guy has. The aggressiveness is the reason he was hired. So my pick is Ross Chastain for Road America, and I genuinely believe he's got a shot to win. Now, I could throw in names like Michael McDowell, like, say, Kevin Harvick was fast in Sonoma. His teammate Daniel Suarez, again, was another consideration of mine. But Chastain just has it. He is also only 30 points behind Chase. If Chase has an accident or gets caught up early, Ross could really take the lead in the points here. You know, I'm very lenient towards Chastain's issues, we'll call them. Because he's aggressive, he's making it exciting, and the reactions from other drivers are making this racing hilarious. You know, we go back a few weeks to St. Louis. It was amazing to watch. It was funny, a bit much, and Ross did hold his hands up and said, look, it was me. I apologise. I expect everything coming back to me. But this is what we wanted. This is the excitement we wanted. And Ross Chastain's bringing it every week now. I love it. I'm here for it. And I'm here for Ross Chastain to go to victory lane. Oh, that is all for this week. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. Dan, thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you check out the Instagram, TikTok and YouTube channels. Go follow them. And for now, I've been Elliot Kamies. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.
Hey, great talking with you again this week, man. Really curious to see what these corners here at Road America are going to have for our boys this 4th of July weekend. But hey, if anybody has anything they want to say about the video, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below. I love hearing what anybody has to say. As always, let me know how wrong I am, how right he is. This is exactly what I'm here for, man. You want to follow me on Twitter, follow me at CupDatesDan. I'm much more active during race days than anything. But hey, it's been a pleasure. Thank you all for having me again. Hope to see you soon.